Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special sports desk with Chris Heidel tonight here on a Friday night. A lot of things have changed, George, since we last logged off on June 14th. I know we were trying to take 2 weeks off, but it was tons of sports news since then. So, like yesterday, you probably be driving around where you are in Indiana. You heard that USC and UCLA heading to the Big Ten. So, what's your take on that?
Well, first of all, as Sonny said from draft day, it's a brand new world.
Yeah, it is a brand new world. It's now the Big Ten is going to be expanding to the West Coast now. Now they got the LA market coming in 2024. So they got the LA market and the New York market. So I guess the Pac-12 is basically on its way out, and I guess you don't have to buy the Pac-12 network anymore.
So let's talk about the Big Ten for a second, okay?
Yeah.
First of all, you can't be the Big Ten when you have 12 teams, okay? And now it should be the Big 14.
Back in
And
the old days with the when they had the Big Eight, the Big Eight conference, and it became the Big 12, and before that was the Big Six back in the old days before the Big Eight.
and
Yeah.
and now they're going to be off balance, Chris. They're going to have 8 teams in the West. There should be 8 teams in the West Division and 6 teams in the East Division.
Yeah, exactly.
There's an unbalance of power. So someone's going to have an identity crisis being from the West Coast playing in the Eastern Division.
Well, plus the folks in California now have a 9 o'clock in the morning kickoff when they have to, USC has to take on Penn State or Maryland or anybody in the East Coast like Rutgers. You got to get a lot of people going to be up at 9 a.m. to watch, USC football, and that's or UCLA football.
Well, let's remember this: USC schedules Notre Dame early in the season, early in the fall, so they don't got to play in the snow. Guess what, folks? You just bought yourself a winter. You just bought yourself a winter football game in the Big Ten.
Yeah, is that like like you said yesterday? They were all USC never wants to play Notre Dame in November and December. Now you have to be playing. You might be playing Michigan in November, and Michigan in November. Full well it's going to be it might be a blizzard, might be 20 degrees, and you think is UCLA or USC fans going to travel to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and some of them don't even have a jacket.
I'm going to give you a California answer. You know what that is?
What is that?
Hell's no.
Exactly. So let's bring in this guest for us real quick here. He does a great job. He does a show, Chris Trevino. He's a USC writer. Does recruiting as well for the 24/7 Sports, and he does a nice podcast. Here's a little clip of his little show he does. He does that during the week. He did it yesterday. He must have been busy yesterday with the situation with USC and UCLA. So let's bring in Chris, who's also a guy who's from my neck of the woods, from the DMV. So I got to ask him, how's life in the LA? So let's bring him in here. So let's bring in Chris. So hi, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. So first, I got to ask you. Moved down from the you went to you're from the DMV, and Maryland. You went out to California. How's life in California recently?
Well, I mean, beautiful weather. I mean, prices, we don't want to talk about that, but it's been really nice. I moved here in 2013, yeah, so it's almost 10 years. So I do miss home, though. So I saw the Maryland logo when you guys reached out to me. I was like, I got to go on a Maryland show. I've never done a Maryland show, so I had to.
So you still have family here. So are you going to come back at USC in 2024 or 25 when they have a game against the Terps? You might be coming back to College Park for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have to worry about renting a hotel or anything like that. I already got a place to stay.
It's always good to have a free place to stay. So, what was your mindset yesterday when you heard this news? I was heading to my other job around 2:30 Eastern time, and I was hearing the local chatter around here on 105.7, like USC and UCLA are heading to the Big Ten. I'm like, are they reading something wrong? And I'm looking at my stopwatch. I was at the traffic light looking at ESPN, and nothing came up on ESPN. I'm like, somebody's reading something out of nowhere. And what was your reaction?
Yeah, so me and my publisher Ryan Abraham, you just showed him on that clip you just played. We were out at a national event, the Elite 11, the quarterback event that happens every year in Southern California. We were there looking at USC's QB commit, Malachi Nelson. It was the last day of the competition. We were going to film some 7-on-7. And while we're waiting, I see a text notification or a tweet notification from John Wilner of the Mercury News, who broke the story, who tweeted out, USC, UCLA looking to make the move to Big Ten in 2024. And I didn't really have great service out there, so I couldn't read the full thing. I just saw, Big Ten, USC, UCLA. So I'm very confused. I'm like, is this real? Is this a fake? What's going on? So I run to Ryan, who's like a couple yards away from me, and I'm like, pull up your phone. You probably have better service. Is this true? What's going on? And we read it, and we were, shocked. And you kind of saw it spread out again, all along the media people that were at the event. And one of our big media people came up to us and was like, "Look, I got a computer, I got a microphone. You guys can do a quick podcast in the stands." Luckily, we were in Redondo Beach, which is where Ryan's studio is. So we were like, we got a studio up like half a mile up the street. We're gonna run there. So we went, ditched our plans for the day, and went to the studio and just talked for close to 2 hours about this. So yeah, it was a frenzy yesterday morning.
Yeah. So what is the life going to be for the next couple of years for USC? Because you got to go to media day in a couple of weeks, a couple of weeks from now, and there's going to be a lot of people going to be very unhappy with USC and UCLA because that's the golden child of it used to be the Pac-10, and the Pac-8 and all that. Now the golden childs are leaving, and it's like now the conference is like, what are we going to do?
Yeah, it's like, living with your girlfriend and then you break up, but you still have to live out the last 6 months of the lease together. It's going to be real awkward. It's definitely a situation like Texas and Oklahoma are kind of going through that right now with
Yep.
Big 12, and they're leaving for the SEC. This one's going to be a little bit quicker. They're joining in 2024, USC and UCLA. So it's going to be interesting what the vibe is at the Pac-12 Media Day coming up in July. With the commissioner, George Kliavkoff, and, Lincoln Riley is going to be a media frenzy in his own, even if they weren't leaving for the Big Ten. And now it's going to be even more pressure, more questions surrounding him going there. And then Chip Kelly with his questions for UCLA, and just, going to be talking to a bunch of people. And, there were reports coming out yesterday that the Pac-12 chancellors and presidents, they were, frustrated about being blindsided about this. So, obviously there's going to be a lot of, feelings going on in that room, in that conference room. A lot of interesting quotes are going to come out, a lot of maybe subtle jabs at people. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, come Pac-12 Media Day and moving forward as USC has to finish out their last 2 years in this conference.
So before I send it over to my partner, George, are they going to do the same? Is the Pac-12 going to tell USC and UCLA you can't play in the title game, just like you have seen with different conferences? We're here on the East Coast. We have James Madison, who couldn't play in the CAA championship game because they moved to the Sun Belt. Are they going to do the same thing? Say, hey, you two, you can't play in the Pac-12 title game the next couple of years because you're leaving for the Big Ten.
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure if that's something that the Pac-12 would sort of do, as a Power 5 conference, sort of being that, I guess, petty to that extent. I mean, they could. I think I don't think you want to piss off USC even more. In the first place, this is kind of the reason why they were leaving, because you didn't take care of them. So if you're going to kind of have that bad blood out the door, I don't think it would be a great look for the Pac-12, which hasn't had a lot of great looks, over the last 10 years or so. So I don't think that would be an issue. I feel like that'd be a big old legal stink about it in terms of, are they allowed to do that? Can they do that? Does USC have the right to play? They didn't break any rules in leaving,
Right.
they did it at the very last minute, but there's nothing illegal about what they've done. And, I'm sure all their ducks were in a row. So I'm sure there'd be some pushback on that from obviously a big, powerful program like USC and that admin.
Yeah, let's go to George because he's a Notre Dame guy. I guess you're going to love coming to Notre Dame in November, December now.
I've actually never been to Notre Dame trip, so I'm excited to get that out of the way.
That's cool. Awesome.
Well, Chris, when you get into town, we'll have to get together. So,
Let's do it.
Chris, it's really interesting because, first of all, that whole division can really collapse, right? If you can't bring a couple other teams in, and then other teams start to fall, this is what they're talking about is these super conferences are this major realignment in sport in college, that it just becomes the next domino that falls along the way. And the impact, it goes beyond just the colleges. I mean, now there's talk about how does this impact the Rose Bowl. This is just bigger than just the Pac-12. This is dealing with, bowl games now, and playing in the Coliseum in the Rose Bowl.
I mean, I think the number one thing is that, college football is about tradition and all that, and that's certainly going out the window at this point because you're moving towards these, as you mentioned, big super leagues, big super conferences, and at some point it could just be an AFC, NFC kind of thing, two big giant conferences going head to head like that, and there'll be no, I'm sure there'll be still some concept of rivalry games, with UCLA, Notre Dame, wherever, but
Mhm.
you're losing the tradition of, USC was in the Pac-12 since the 1920s. You're losing that. You're losing all these geographical connections, and that's going out the door as we move into this era of super leagues with all the money that's at stake, $100 million things. Money moves everything, and that's going to wipe away a lot of the tradition. So bowl games, these traditional bowl games like the Rose Bowl and all that, they're going to have to adapt or get left to the wayside. I mean, the Rose Bowl is big enough that it will survive. It's just going to look very different to what we're used to, with the
Yep.
a Big Ten, USC, Pac-12 sort of matchup. So I'm interested to see how that works out. It's still kind of early to kind of see what that's going to look like, but I am interested to see how the Rose Bowl will move forward.
Yeah.
So to
Go
to
ahead.
to piggyback on that, of course, I'm going to bring up Notre Dame and what's going on with the statement that the Big Ten has made that, well, hold on, folks, we're waiting and see what Notre Dame does. Okay, um, I put a tweet out earlier this evening that it's very surprising an independent conference football team is going to have this big, tremendous leverage and what happens here. So people talk about Notre Dame and their relevance. I mean, as a guy that covers the Irish and stuff like that, I could see their relevance, but on a national scale, it's what we always say. Notre Dame does make a difference in the college football arena.
I don't think you really have an argument if you try to go against what you just said. Notre Dame is relevant. Notre Dame is a brand. It is, a blue blood. It's up there with, Alabama and USC and this historic program. And you want that in your conference. And Notre Dame right now to the Big Ten is the number one target on their board, just to throw recruiting at you. It's like, this is the guy we're going after. There's second options, whether that be Oregon or a Washington.
Yep.
You're going to slow play them because you're waiting on what Notre Dame wants to do. You're not putting all your eggs in that basket, but that's the one you really want. That's number one on your board. You want to get them in the fold. And then if not, you fall back to another option. But it just makes so much sense for Notre Dame to follow to the Big Ten. That that's their country, that's their style, and it just makes so much sense with those rivalry games with a USC to keep that sort of tradition alive in sort of this new era of super leagues.
And there's money there. There's money to follow that switch too. So you're talking a bigger chunk of the pie.
Yeah, I mean, money is probably the greatest motivating factor for this. Money rules everything in a lot of avenues of life, and especially in college football with, NIL and recruiting, TV deals, media rights, $100 million contracts for coaches, more money for staffs, more money for the arms race that is, football facilities. And USC was getting like $30 million from the Pac-12, and then it comes out, USC could earn up to $100 million with their LA rights in that media market. So I don't know a lot of people that would turn down $100 million to stick with $30 million. So USC could use that money for a lot of things, upgraded facilities, which is something they've been lacking a little bit. So now they have the funds to kind of get that going and do a lot of other things with it. So money is one of the motivating factors for this. And for all college teams, SEC and the Big Ten, there's just such a big gap between their payouts for their schools compared to the ACC or the Big 12 and especially the Pac 12. So USC was jumping from, a burning ship to a nice super yacht. So that's kind of the idea where it's going. So they want a piece of that pie, and USC deserves a bigger piece of that pie. I mean, obviously they haven't been USC as of late, with all the struggles they've gone through, but they're entering an era where they can be back to being, that blue blood and earn that respect on a national level, and money will help.
Yeah, let's bring in Ben Bolch, who does the stuff for UCLA. So we'll just do a little quick here. Let's bring him in. He's so busy for the last couple of. Hi Ben, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me
Thanks for
on.
coming on. I know you've been a busy guy today. Your phone probably was blowing up yesterday with all this stuff going on with the UCLA and USC. So, where were you yesterday when this all went down? You're looking at your phone going, huh? What's going on here?
Well, interestingly enough, I was driving to Washington, D.C. near you guys. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. I was visiting my dad down there and coming back up to D.C. I was about 20 minutes in the drive when the news broke. So I couldn't stop. I needed to get here. So I picked up the speed a little bit and zoomed it up the I-95 to get here as soon as I could to start getting to work. But yeah, it was very stressful, but also kind of invigorating day.
Yeah. So UCLA and USC goes off to the Big Ten now. Now it's going to be a big conference for the Big Ten, and plus for the travel issues now for both schools, because you got to make sure the time zones and all that stuff. So I know that's not going to be an issue, but a lot of people in California don't really want to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning and watch a football game. But I guess now they got to do it if you guys come to Maryland.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's some interest and intrigue in these time slots. I mean, certainly nobody wants to get up, super early on a weekend. That's a good point. But there's a lot of fans that also didn't even come to games, the Rose Bowl, because all the Pac-12 After Dark starts at 7:30, games that would stretch toward midnight, and nobody watching in person or on TV. So I think these time slots that are going to be geared more toward the fans in the Central and East Coast time slots, where they're not going to have to stay up too late. No game at the Rose Bowl probably starting past 5 p.m. is going to be a huge boost for UCLA.
Yeah. So what does Chip Kelly say about it? Because I know he's an old East Coast guy, and I heard last year, you guys didn't play the bowl game against NC State, but I heard that he might want to come back east or do something, because UCLA is not doing real well in football. But now it's like he's part of this big super conference, and he's like, hey, I can stay around and do nothing. I can stay in this conference for a while.
Well, in typical Chip Kelly fashion, he said nothing. I think he's probably one of the only coaches involved that has not said anything publicly. But I imagine he's on board with this. I mean, look, they upgraded across the board with this move. So many more rivalries that could be fashioned here, bringing Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State into the fold, and teams that are going to be coming to the Rose Bowl, and UCLA fans are going to be coming back east now. I think everybody's going to be just thrilled that now they're going to be in one of the premier conferences in the country, challenging the SEC. Huge recruiting benefits nationwide, more resources, more exposure, better TV time slots. There's really no downside. And I've even mentioned USC still in the mix, and that rivalry's preserved. So really wins across the board for UCLA.
Same thing with USC. Everything's still together. You guys still play your rivalry game. Hopefully it's not like Thanksgiving weekend. It'll be a little bit before Thanksgiving weekend, or maybe Thanksgiving weekend, but that will help the Big Ten promoting the Big Ten, saying, hey, we got rivalry games like USC and UCLA and Michigan State. And I guess Fox is going to love it now, because they're going to try to figure out which one they're going to pick, because, hey, we got the 4 o'clock game with the UCLA and USC game at 4 o'clock, but we may want to have Michigan and Michigan State at 12 noon.
Yeah, there's so many things that are going to be fascinating. I mean, I don't even know how the division breakdown is going to go. I'm sure they're going to try to keep SC and UCLA in the same division, playing every year. I'll be interested to see if there's going to be any kind of scheduling accommodations where, like USC tries to go to Notre Dame when the weather's nice, and then Notre Dame comes out to USC when it's cold in South Bend. I wonder if there's going to be any sort of similar commitment to coming to the Rose Bowl when it's cold in the Midwest and on the East Coast. So there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, but a lot of intrigue. And I think there's just our metrics have been off the charts. People are excited. People are interested. At least for the first few years, it's going to be really, really fascinating to see how this plays out.
George, go ahead.
So I'm going to put this question to Ben and to Chris. Okay, Ben, you can take the question first. I was sitting here thinking, we're talking about just football, but how does this impact all the other sports? I know Notre Dame, though they're independent, they have this thing in the ACC. That's why they play kind of an ACC schedule in football. How is this going to affect the other sports for these two teams?
Well, I know for basketball, it's going to be a huge boon because let's just look at last year. The Pac-12 got 3 teams in the tournament. I believe the Big Ten got 9. So that's we talk about tripling the revenue. You're tripling the number of bids that your conference is going to get. So to ensure that they were in the tournament in the Pac-12, you got to be an elite upper tier team in the conference and not have many slip ups. In the Big Ten, that margin for error really increases, and you can probably get. And if you do really well, you can get a better seed much easier. So that's a huge boost. Some of the other sports, I know that there's some concerns about, UCLA is so elite in sports like softball. What's going to be the competition level in the Big Ten when they're going there and mercy ruling, let's say Rutgers or somebody like that after flying across the country.
Yes.
How excited are these athletes going to be to go just beat up on one team after another? I think it's a legitimate concern. Certainly the wear and tear, we call them student athletes. I don't think that term's ever been more laughable than it is today, just because what they're asking these young men and women to do. It's a legitimate concern with a very hectic class schedule and many other things going on in your life. So I think there are some legitimate concerns. I've heard some creative potential solutions of maybe even having some of the non-revenue sports meet in a neutral site like Chicago, like having Penn State's, soccer team fly to Chicago to play UCLA. I mean, that's just, an example. Nothing's been determined, but I know there's going to be some accommodations and some creative thoughts that are going to go into solving this kind of travel quagmire.
Yeah, and like you said about other sports, George, like softball and baseball's been pretty well too. Maryland did really good this year with baseball, so that could be a good thing for weekend baseball with UCLA and USC baseball coming in the mix. But other sports as well, like I think USC and UCLA do really well in water polo. I don't think Big 12 has that, so I guess they're going to have different teams going to be independent for that. But soccer, soccer is going to be good for both Maryland, UCLA, and USC in soccer.
And
Yeah.
Chris, what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is going to be great for Maryland now. Now it doesn't look bad for Maryland because when Maryland moved with Rutgers in 2014, everybody here is like, okay, we just left the ACC, just like what UCLA and UCLA are doing. And now we have to go to this new conference, and we have to play catch up to the big boys. And I feel like now Maryland feels like they're pretty cool now because if the ACC folds or everybody else folds, they're in a big super conference, and they're going to be like, we're smart. We left in 2014.
How about you, Chris Trevino?
Yeah,
I don't know if his microphone went.
I think he has a problem with his mic.
Yeah. We'll wrap it up here in a couple minutes. Here. Chris, can you hear us?
yeah.
All right, what do you think about this whole thing? What George just said.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can hear you a little bit.
Maryland, made the jump to the Big Ten, and it sort of took a little bit of time for our other sports to sort of get accustomed to, going from an ACC type schedule to, different athletes in the Big Ten. So I'm interested to see how, the Pac-12 athletes sort of handle that when you go to these Midwest teams. And, obviously with the travel, as I mentioned, when I go back home from Maryland, that flight knocks me out. So I don't know how you would even try to reset so quickly to go and play a high level game after with that jet lag. So that's definitely going to be something that they're going to have to tackle early on.
Yeah. Same question, Ben. Go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to think about it. You probably have to build in an extra travel day just for recovery purposes. And, I was corresponding with the UCLA football truck driver equipment truck driver today, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna have to hire a second driver. I mean, you could consider a scenario where he's got to drive from Los Angeles to Rutgers, back to Los Angeles for a game at the Rose Bowl, and then conceivably back to Happy Valley. I mean, can you imagine that? Like a 3-week stretch of like one cross-country trip after another? It's just insane. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of logistics and some extra resources that are going to need to be poured into this. But I guess the upside is there's certainly the money there to do some of these things.
Well, Ben, I could tell you, we traveled our local high school. My daughter is in the local marching band here in the Penn High School district, and we were out at the Hollywood Christmas Parade this year. And it's a 2.5-day trip across country for a truck driver because they can only drive so many hours a day. So they're going to have to get team drivers now.
Yeah, it's going to have to be basically a 24-hour operation, right?
Yep.
Because they can't go past 8 hours, because that's what my father said. You drive 8 hours, and truckers have to get off the road and sleep for 8 hours, and they got to get up the next morning. So if you want to get to, like you said, to Happy Valley for a Penn State game at 12 noon on Saturday, you have to leave like Wednesday to get everything there by Friday night. So it's going to be crazy stuff, but that's not until 2024. But guys, thanks for coming on tonight. I appreciate you guys have some time, and don't be strangers. We'll get you guys on again down the road, and hopefully we'll see how you guys are doing.
Great.
And Ben, we'll see you. So I'll see you September 17th. Ben, you'll be out here for the Notre Dame Cal game. It's Cal. It's not UCLA. I'm my bad.
Yeah.
He'll just come out anyway.
Too many close initials.
But UCLA's playing Maryland in basketball out here this year, so that'll be a good kind of preview of that travel and the new alignment.
Exactly, that'll be very interesting to see. So we'll talk about that when that game starts in November, right? I think that's around November, right?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I think it might be in mid-December, but somewhere in that window.
All right, cool. Well, have a great 4th of July, you two, okay?
Guys, thank you so much.
Guys. Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye.
Chris, I fumbled the ball, Chris. I got Cal and UCLA mixed up.
I'm thinking like, yeah, you'll just come to South Bend. Everybody's just thinking, hey, Notre Dame's going to have the green jerseys on in that game anyway. So last time they had the green jerseys on, they did it again. They beat my Knowles pretty badly.
That was a game that you were at, by the way.
Yes, I was there, and it was cold as anything. It was 14 degrees, and my buddy Matt was outside on the field taking pictures, and he goes, "I couldn't feel my anything." I was like,
And this guy called it 3 weeks before and says there was going to be snow for that game.
Oh, you did? That's why we should have a weather report starting on Tuesday. But real quick, before we talk about Tuesday's show, real quick, what is your take on Notre Dame now? Like you said, the Big Ten is waiting for what Notre Dame's going to do. Now ACC is going to be knocking on the door, going, "Hi, you were with us for 1 year. Would you like to come back for another? Because you have that money that everybody wants called NBC."
Well, you know what? It's going to be about whose money is going to be better, right? If they do, and I'll be honest with you, because we've had this conversation in the past. Notre Dame's not going to do what's bad for Notre Dame, okay?
Right.
I understand their independence. I understand their rivalry games, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough call. But you got to start thinking, if I don't get into a conference, is that going to lock me out of the college football playoffs now?
That's going to be the key now.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I'll just say it's really interesting that all of a sudden people here in South Bend and around the country have become experts on what's best for Notre Dame football. I would say it seems like the fan base is split 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Just from what I've, in my unscientific look at messages in social media, folks that were saying they'll never go independent, everyone's like, now they got to go independent. This is a pick'em. This is not an easy call as far as what they're going to do. No. Would I not be surprised? I would not be surprised if they go to the Big Ten. I know they have a contract with the ACC.
Right.
Okay, but in the end, where's the bank account going to roll from?
Right. And here's the other thing is, what happened to that alliance that the Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big Ten made last year?
Hold on.
I guess somebody forgot to write a contract. Like I thought they had an alliance.
Somebody misplaced the sticky note.
Yeah, I thought they had an alliance. They made this whole big stink last year with the SEC getting Oklahoma and Texas. Oh, we're going to be alliance with each other. We're going to work together. And then all of a sudden the Big Ten goes, and goes, and they go to the Pac-12 and say, "See you later. We're going to take your two teams." And the ACC sitting there holding the bucket, going, it's going to be really interesting to find out on the in 2 weeks of the ACC kickoff down in Charlotte what Florida State, Clemson, and then today I heard Georgia Tech might be in play.
Well, I think this is a death blow to the Pac-10, the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I think that is going to. You're not going to get somebody in there to fill those shoes, and this is like I was saying earlier. This is where the fallout starts.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll happen. It'll happen quick because it's going to be about self-preservation.
Yeah, I won't be surprised after the 4th of July we'll hear something about Arizona State and Arizona going to the Big 12 or something like that just to get out of the Pac-12 or ACC picking up some West Coast team to have an ACC West Coast division. But that's a lot of money for people in the ACC. And can you see Florida State flying out to play against USC in the Coliseum? That's a lot of money for Tallahassee, and a lot of schools in the ACC need a lot of money sometimes. So,
well, I don't know. You may have a team that may be on the cusp of being great, can't seem to get over the hump. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they go and they move into a different division. Now they become king. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So imagine this, Chris. Okay, your matchup would be in the Rose Bowl. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a USC representing the Big Ten versus a team from out west.
Yeah.
That'd be really weird.
It would be funny. It would be USC taking on Arizona State in the Rose Bowl, and it's just reversal, and Big Ten is now their Big Ten, and it's like, wait a minute, are they supposed to play each other? Oh, wait a minute, they're in two separate divisions now. And now if you're in the Big Ten, you're so happy you have both two big major markets, LA and New York. You're sitting golden now.
Hey, Chris, this may be the opportunity for Ohio State to get a beat down. You got to be careful how you welcome somebody in the door. Okay, USC can come in; they can give Ohio State the run for the money.
Yeah,
and Cal could too.
And plus, they're getting rid of the divisions, right? I guess they're getting rid of the division like the ACC did. So you're going to have the top two teams go to Indianapolis. It's going to probably be USC and Ohio State in the Big Ten title game.
Ohio State versus USC.
Yeah. That's a lot of money for that Big Ten there, and he'll fill that stadium real quick.
How about this? Notre Dame versus USC. If that's the way it falls, if Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, Notre Dame versus USC.
And a rematch because they played each other like 2 weeks ago.
Exactly.
It's like it's
Clemson all over again.
I know. Hey, it's going to be a very interesting show on Tuesday night. We have our buddy Adam. Heading up to Portland, Maine for the PB8 League up there at Bayside Bowl. We got a lot of bowlers going to stop by and talk to Adam, and they're practicing at the same time Tuesday night. And then we'll talk some college football. We have the coach for New Hampshire who took over for Coach Mack. Coach Santos is going to be joining us, Ricky Santos, who used to be Coach Mack's quarterback a long time ago. So he's taking over the program. And then we have Coach Callahan, who is from Mammoth University up there in New Jersey. So we got a little New Jersey action going on Tuesday night. And then around the 8:00 hour, towards the end, we have the Hokies stopping by. A brand new guy, Zach, what's his name? Murray, who does who's used to be in Iowa broadcaster now. He's down in Blacksburg, Virginia. So it's pretty funny. Everybody I saw on Twitter who was on our show last year, he's getting new jobs. So
Chris, you started the carousel.
I know. I started everybody's new jobs. I get new things, new everything. Everybody's and we'll see what we can do with we'll talk a little Coastal Division on Tuesday night. We'll carry that into the following Tuesday as well. Because we got a lot of stuff going on. But it's going to be very interesting. This coming Tuesday night at 7:00. With Adam being up at Portland, Maine. So hopefully we'll see what he can do with all these bowlers.
Well, it's exciting times. College football. It's a changed environment right now.
Yeah.
And it's going to change rapidly right in front of your eyes. The next few weeks, the next couple months, it's going to be different.
Well, a year ago, we were down in the ACC kickoff, you and I, and then we found out the day before that, that same day, that Wednesday, that Oklahoma and Texas was bolting to the SEC, and then that was the talk of the entire kickoff for that whole day.
I just don't understand why the whole Oklahoma and Texas is taking so long to happen where UCLA and USC are coming in 2 years.
Well, I think the Big 12 has some kind of deal with those guys because they have their own, because Texas has their own broadcast, the Longhorn Network, and I think they have an issue with their contract, and then I think Oklahoma is going to start doing theirs soon. And then with the ACC, I found out this today, if you want to leave the ACC, you got to pay them over close to $150 million to get out.
Well,
do you have that money? Yeah, and everybody in the ACC has a contract signed with the conference until 2036.
Well, and that's what makes it very difficult for Notre Dame to go if they have a quote unquote contract with the ACC, right?
Right.
To jump ship.
Exactly. I think it's going to be interesting. Well, we're going to have some dinner here. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We're just testing out our new toy. So it went pretty well. Looks really well. So we'll see you all on this coming Tuesday. Have a great 4th of July, everybody. And we'll see you Tuesday night at 7 with a great show lined up for you. So now to end for George Becerra, who is in Indiana. Maybe next week we'll talk Notre Dame going to somewheres.
It'll be a shock.
Yeah, we'll have it here, and never know if George finds out ahead of time. He'll tell me. We'll get you on. We'll have breaking news on this program.
We'll do some type of a breaking news story for sure.
Yeah, like we did last time. That was great when we did that at the airport. That was great.
Yep.
That was really good. And then we'll see what's going on. So now until then, everybody, thanks for joining us. Thanks for Ben and Chris for joining us from out there in beautiful. One of them was actually here on the East Coast, so that's pretty interesting. I forgot. I didn't realize he was here in North Carolina. So,
hey, Chris, everybody have a safe 4th of July, and please come watch us on Tuesday with all your digits, okay?
Yeah. Give us some money.
Bring your digits. We don't want anybody with missing digits next week.
No, we don't want to be stumpy. Yeah. So, folks, have a great 4th. We'll see you soon.